Hello, my dear witches and wizards, it's James. Welcome back to another cozy evening together, another chance to step away from the world beyond and into somewhere softer, somewhere magical. Tonight, I'm inviting you into your very first year at Hogwarts, into those early days when everything feels impossibly vast and wonderfully new. You'll be sorted into Ravenclaw, make friends who will become like family, attend classes where magic stops being theory and becomes something you can hold in your hands. And of course, there'll be mischief, because what's Hogwarts without a little harmless fun? So find yourself somewhere warm and comfortable. Let the world around you fade into shadow, and together, let's begin your first real adventure at Hogwarts. The Ravenclaw common room wraps around you like a warm embrace, all deep blues and burnished bronze catching the firelight in ways that make the whole space feel alive. You're sitting in an armchair that's far too large for you, your feet barely touching the floor, and the cushions seem to cradle you as if they understand just how overwhelming this day has been. The ceiling overhead mimics the night sky, stars twinkling in constellations you're just beginning to learn the names of, and the circular room with its tall arched windows offers glimpses of the grounds below, dark and mysterious under the September moon. The sorting ceremony ended barely an hour ago, and your heart is still doing strange little flips every time you remember the sorting hat's voice in your head, turning over your thoughts like pages in a book before finally declaring you a Ravenclaw. Your older sibling was in this house too, graduated just 2 years ago, and you can almost feel their presence in the worn armrests of this chair, in the way the other students smile at you when you mention their name. Around you, other first years are scattered in small clusters, their voices a gentle murmur that blends with the crackling fire. Some look as dazed as you feel. Others are already chatting animatedly, their initial nervousness melting away. The prefects have been kind, showing you where everything is, explaining how the eagle knocker on the door asks a new riddle each time you want to enter. You solved yours on the first try, something about what gets wetter the more it dries, and the answer came to you so naturally that you barely had to think. A towel, of course. The door swung open with what you could have sworn was an approving creak, and stepping into this room for the first time felt like coming home to a place you'd never been before. A boy drops into the chair beside yours with a gusty sigh, his robes already rumpled despite the evening barely begun. He's got messy blonde hair that sticks up in about 7 different directions, a round, friendly face, and eyes that sparkle with barely contained excitement. "That was absolutely nerve-wracking," he says, not bothering with introductions, as if you've been friends for years already. "I thought the hat would never decide. It kept going on about Hufflepuff, then Ravenclaw, then back to Hufflepuff again. I was sitting there thinking everyone was going to get bored and leave before it made up its mind." His laugh is infectious, bright, and unself-conscious, and you find yourself smiling despite your exhaustion. "I'm Duncan," he adds, sticking out his hand. "Duncan Fairweather. And yes, before you ask, my gran says our family name is ironic because we're terrible at weather charms." You shake his hand, introduce yourself, and Duncan grins even wider. "Oh, you're Cassian's sibling. Everyone kept talking about them, said they were brilliant at charms. No pressure, right?" He doesn't seem to notice your slight wince, just keeps chattering on about the feast, about how he ate so much treacle tart he thought he might actually burst, about how his mother cried so hard at King's Cross that his dad had to literally steer her away from the train. There's something wonderfully uncomplicated about Duncan, something that makes the knot of anxiety in your chest loosen just a little. A girl sitting in the chair across from yours looks up from her book, and you're struck by how serious her expression is, how dark and thoughtful her eyes appear in the firelight. She's tall for 11, with deep brown skin and hair pulled back into intricate braids that must have taken hours to complete. "You might want to pace yourself," she says to Duncan, her voice quiet but clear. "If first-day exhaustion is anything like what my cousin described, you'll want to save some energy for tomorrow." She closes her book, keeping one finger tucked inside to mark her place, and nods toward you both. Petra Nightingale. "My cousin graduated 3 years ago, Ravenclaw too. She wrote me letters describing everything, so I thought I was prepared. But actually being here is completely different from reading about it." Duncan leans forward, conspiratorially. "Is it true about the staircases moving? Because I'm already terrified I'm going to end up in the dungeons by accident, and some Slytherin will hex me before I can explain I'm just lost." Petra's serious expression cracks just slightly, the corner of her mouth twitching upward. "The staircases do move, but there's a pattern to it if you pay attention, and most Slytherins aren't going to hex you just for being lost." Probably. That probably hangs in the air for a moment before all three of you laugh. And just like that, something shifts. You're not three strangers anymore, not really. You're 3 first years figuring this out together, and that feels like the beginning of something important. The common room gradually fills with more students, returning from the feast, older years who move through the space with the easy confidence of those who've walked these paths before. They ruffle the hair of younger students as they pass, call out greetings, settle into their familiar spots with books or chess sets or projects you can't quite identify. A 5th-year prefect separates himself from a group near the bookcases and makes his way toward where the first years are gathered. He's tall and lean, with dark hair that falls across his forehead and intense gray eyes that seem to take in everything at once. His prefect badge gleams silver against his robes, catching the light as he moves. When he speaks, his voice carries authority, but also warmth, like someone who takes his responsibilities seriously, but hasn't forgotten what it's like to be new. "Welcome to Ravenclaw," he says, and the chattering first years quiet to listen. "I'm Marcus Weatherby, one of your 5th-year prefects. You'll see me around quite a bit, especially in the mornings when I'm trying to make sure everyone actually makes it to breakfast instead of getting lost in the library." A few students laugh. Ravenclaw House values wit, learning, wisdom, and creativity. You're here because you've got sharp minds and a love of knowledge. But remember that wisdom isn't just about knowing things. It's about understanding when to use what you know and when to admit you don't have all the answers. His gaze sweeps across the assembled first years, seeming to linger on each face for just a moment. Work hard, look out for each other, and you'll do brilliantly here. And if you ever need anything, any of the prefects are here to help. That's what we're here for. As Marcus finishes his welcome speech, you find your attention drawn to a display case mounted on the wall near the entrance to the dormitory stairs. Inside rests a beautiful silver replica of Ravenclaw's diadem, the legendary lost artifact that once belonged to Rowena Ravenclaw herself. The tiara gleams even in the low light, inscribed with words you can just barely make out. "Wit beyond measure is man's greatest treasure." A small plaque beneath explains that while the original diadem was lost centuries ago, this replica honors the house's founder and the values she held dear. You notice Marcus glancing toward the case as well, and there's something in his expression you can't quite read. Intensity, maybe, or longing. But then he blinks, and the moment passes, and he's turning back toward the older students with a smile, accepting congratulations from a friend on winning the prefect position. Duncan nudges your arm. "Come on, we should probably head up to the dormitories. I'm about ready to fall asleep right here." Petra marks her page properly this time and closes her book, standing and stretching with a small yawn she tries to hide behind her hand. The three of you make your way toward the spiral staircase that leads to the dormitories, and you're acutely aware of every detail as you climb. The steps are worn smooth by generations of students, the stone cool even through your shoes. Small windows set into the tower wall offer glimpses of the star-strewn sky, and somewhere in the distance you hear the faint hoot of an owl. Your dormitory, when you finally reach it, is perfect. Circular like the common room, with 5 four-poster beds draped in blue silk, each topped with a name card. Your trunk is already here, sitting at the foot of your assigned bed, and when you run your hand along the carved wooden posts, you feel a little thrill run through you. This is real. You're actually here, actually a Hogwarts student, actually beginning this life you've dreamed about for so long. Duncan claims the bed next to yours, immediately flopping down on it with another dramatic sigh. This mattress is like sleeping on a cloud, a firm cloud, but still a cloud. Petra chooses the bed by the window, already unpacking her things with methodical efficiency, hanging her robes in the wardrobe and arranging her books on the small shelf beside her bed. The other 2 beds belong to boys named Thomas and Adrian, who are still downstairs. But you catch a glimpse of a Chudley Cannons poster being unpacked from one trunk, and a very sophisticated-looking telescope being carefully wrapped in protective cloth in the other. You start your own unpacking, pulling out your brand new school robes, your cauldron and potion supplies, the stack of books whose spines are still uncreased. At the very bottom of your trunk, wrapped in soft cloth, is your wand. 11 inches of cherry wood with a unicorn hair core, the wand maker had told you, perfect for defensive magic and transfiguration work. You'd felt it choose you the moment Mr. Ollivander handed it over, that warm, tingling sensation running up your arm like greeting an old friend. Sleep doesn't come easily that first night, despite your exhaustion. You lie in your bed, listening to the sounds of the castle settling around you, to Duncan's quiet snoring from the next bed over, to the wind whistling past the tower windows. Your mind keeps spinning through everything that's happened, everything that's still to come. Tomorrow you'll have your first real classes. You'll start learning actual magic, not just reading about it in books, but performing it with your own wand. The thought is terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. What if you're not good enough? What if everyone else is better? What if the Sorting Hat made a mistake? But then you remember Marcus's words about wisdom being more than just knowledge, and Duncan's easy laugh, and Petra's careful competence, and you think that maybe, just maybe, you're exactly where you're supposed to be. Morning arrives too quickly and too slowly at once, pale gray light filtering through the windows to paint everything in soft shades of dawn. The castle wakes gradually around you, the distant sounds of footsteps and voices, the clatter of dishes from far below, the great hall, an owl's cry somewhere overhead. You dress in your school robes for the first time, fumbling slightly with the unfamiliar fastenings, and when you catch sight of yourself in the long mirror by the door, you almost don't recognize the person staring back. You look older somehow, more official, like a real student rather than just a child playing dress-up. Duncan emerges from the bathroom with his hair even more disheveled than yesterday, if that's possible, his tie already crooked. Petra appears moments later, looking impossibly put together, her braids perfect and her robes hanging exactly right, and she takes one look at Duncan and moves to straighten his tie without comment. The Great Hall at breakfast is overwhelming in its grandeur, the enchanted ceiling showing a sky that promises autumn rain later, the long house tables already filling with students. The noise level is extraordinary, hundreds of conversations happening simultaneously, owls swooping in through the high windows to deliver mail, the clatter of plates and cups and silverware. You slide onto the bench at the Ravenclaw table between Duncan and Petra, and immediately Duncan starts piling food onto his plate with the dedication of someone who's made eating a personal mission. "My mum says I'm a growing boy," he explains through a mouthful of toast. "Have to keep my strength up for all this magic we're going to be doing." Professor Thistlewood, the Transfiguration teacher, is a sharp-featured witch with iron-gray hair pulled back in a severe bun and eyes that seem to miss absolutely nothing. Her classroom is in a high-ceilinged chamber filled with desks arranged in neat rows, and she stands at the front with the kind of perfect posture that makes you unconsciously straighten your own spine. Transfiguration is some of the most complex and dangerous magic you will learn at Hogwarts, she tells your class, her Scottish accent giving each word a precise edge. "Anyone messing around in my class will leave and not come back. You have been warned." Despite the strictness of her words, there's something in her expression that suggests she appreciates students who actually pay attention, who try their best even when they fail. Your first task is to turn a match into a needle, and you watch as Professor Thistlewood demonstrates, her wand moving in a specific pattern as she speaks the incantation clearly. The match on her desk shimmers and stretches, silver creeping along its length until a perfect sewing needle lies where the match once was. "The key," she explains, "is to be absolutely clear in your mind about what you want to achieve. Transfiguration requires focus and precision. Vague intentions will get you vague results, if they get you anything at all." She returns the needle to its match form with another flick of her wand, and then it's your turn to try. You stare at your match, trying to envision it as a needle, trying to feel the difference between wood and metal, between something meant to burn and something meant to pierce. Your first attempt produces only a faint shimmer. Your second attempt makes the match twitch slightly, but nothing more. On your third try, concentrating so hard your head starts to ache, you feel something shift. The wand movement feels right, the incantation comes out clearly, and the match begins to change. It's not a perfect needle. The eye is a bit too large and the point slightly dull, but it's recognizably a needle and definitely not a match anymore. Pride surges through your chest as Professor Thistlewood pauses beside your desk. "Acceptable," she says, which from her seems like high praise. "Practice the wand movement another dozen times tonight before bed." Duncan, beside you, is not having quite as much success. His match keeps catching fire, small flames licking up from the tip that he has to frantically blow out. By the end of class, his desk is covered in match ash, and he looks thoroughly discouraged, but Professor Thistlewood stops by his desk on her way out. "Happens to many students their first try, Mr. Fairweather. Fire and transformation are closely related in magical theory. You've got power, now you just need to refine the control." Duncan brightens considerably at this, and you can see him already planning how much he's going to practice tonight. Herbology takes place in the greenhouses, warm, humid spaces that smell of earth and growing things and something faintly spicy you can't quite identify. Professor Longbottom, a cheerful middle-aged wizard with dirt perpetually under his fingernails, has you repotting mandrake seedlings. "Earmuffs on, everyone," he calls out, demonstrating the proper gripping technique for pulling a young mandrake from its pot. These ones are still babies, so their cry won't kill you, but it will knock you out for a few hours, and we've got more classes this afternoon, so let's avoid that, shall we? The mandrakes are ugly little things, looking unsettlingly like mud-covered babies with leaves sprouting from their heads, and they thrash and wail when pulled from the soil. Duncan gets dirt absolutely everywhere, in his hair and on his face, and somehow inside his robes, but his mandrake does end up successfully repotted. You manage yours with only slightly shaking hands, trying not to think too hard about how something so plant-like can have such a distinctly human scream. Charms with Professor Elmswood is your favorite class so far. The Charms Professor is a thin, energetic wizard who talks with his hands and frequently seems to lose track of what he was saying mid-sentence, but his enthusiasm is absolutely infectious. "The levitation charm," he announces, bouncing slightly on his toes, "is one of the most useful charms you'll ever learn. Simple in theory, endlessly applicable in practice. I once used it to rescue a cat from a tree, float my groceries home when I'd forgotten my bag, and rearrange my entire office furniture without throwing out my back. Though I did accidentally send a bookshelf through a window that one time, but we won't dwell on that." He demonstrates the wand movement, a swish and flick that looks deceptively simple, speaking the incantation clearly. Wingardium Leviosa. The feather on your desk sits there stubbornly for your first few attempts, not even quivering. But you can feel yourself starting to understand the movement, the way the magic flows through the wand when you get the motion and the intention aligned just right. On your 7th attempt, the feather trembles. On your 8th, it lifts an inch off the desk before dropping again. On your 9th, it rises smoothly into the air, floating upward until it nearly reaches the ceiling, and you have to concentrate to bring it back down gently rather than letting it fall. Professor Elmswood actually claps. "Excellent. Natural talent there. Clear visualization. 10 points to Ravenclaw." Petra, predictably, performs the charm perfectly on her 2nd try, her feather rising with the steady smoothness of something on an invisible elevator. Duncan's feather shoots sideways and nearly takes out another student's eye, but by the end of class, he's managed to get it to hover for at least 3 seconds before it drops. Lunch in the Great Hall is a blessed relief after the morning's mental exertion, and you collapse onto the bench, feeling like your brain has been thoroughly wrung out. Duncan immediately begins loading his plate again, but he's so excited about the levitation charm that he keeps gesturing with his fork and occasionally flinging food around by accident. "Did you see mine floating? It actually floated for a whole 3 seconds." Petra is more reserved in her enthusiasm, but you can tell she's pleased, a small, satisfied smile playing at the corners of her mouth as she methodically works through her lunch. "I've been reading about the underlying theory," she says. "The charm essentially temporarily negates the object's mass relative to local gravity. Once you understand that, the wand movement makes more sense." Potions that afternoon is taught by a severe-looking wizard named Professor Blackwood, and the dungeon classroom is cold and shadowy, despite the dozens of candles hovering near the ceiling. "Potion making is an exact science," Professor Blackwood informs you. his voice like stones grinding together. Too much of one ingredient, too little of another, incorrect stirring technique, improper heat application. Any of these will result in failure. Some of you will have a natural aptitude for this work. Most of you will struggle. This is normal. He assigns a simple cure for boils as your first potion, and you follow the instructions as carefully as possible, measuring out dried nettles and snake fangs, crushing porcupine quills and adding them at just the right moment. But somewhere you make a mistake because your potion turns a sickly brown color instead of the pale pink it's meant to be. And when Professor Blackwood examines it, he simply vanishes it with a wave of his wand. Try again next time and pay attention to your stirring technique. Walking back toward Ravenclaw Tower after classes finally end, your robes dusty with greenhouse dirt and smelling faintly of potion ingredients, you feel thoroughly exhausted. Is every day going to be this overwhelming, you ask? And Petra considers this seriously before answering. Probably, but we'll get used to it. Our brains will adapt to processing this much new information. Give it a week, and this will feel normal. Duncan, showing no signs of exhaustion, despite complaining about hunger approximately every 40 seconds, grins at both of you. At least we're not doing it alone. Can you imagine going through all this with no one to talk to about it? That would be awful. The first few days at Hogwarts blur together in a whirlwind of classes and homework and exploring the castle during your free time. You quickly learn which staircases are reliable and which ones will strand you 3 floors from where you wanted to go. You discover that the suits of armor sometimes comment on passing students, usually with outdated slang that makes absolutely no sense. You find a shortcut behind a tapestry on the 4th floor that cuts 10 minutes off the walk to the greenhouses. And through it all, the friendship between you and Duncan and Petra deepens from that initial connection into something more solid, more real. You quiz each other on spell theory in the common room. You save seats at meals. You've developed the kind of shorthand communication where a single glance can convey an entire conversation. It's Duncan who first suggests pulling a prank about a week into term when you've all finally found your rhythm with the schoolwork. You're sitting together in the common room, working on a transfiguration essay, and Duncan keeps getting distracted by a Hufflepuff first year named Oliver Webb, who sits near you in several classes. He's not bad or anything, Duncan says, keeping his voice low. But he keeps going on and on about how Hufflepuff is clearly the best house, how all the most loyal students are there, how Ravenclaws might be smart, but they're not as nice. It's getting a bit old. You glance over to where Oliver sits with some of his housemates at lunch, and you have to admit there's something slightly smug about the way he talks. Not mean, exactly, just a bit too self-satisfied. We could do something harmless, you suggest, and Petra looks up from her essay with an expression that's trying to be disapproving, but doesn't quite make it. What exactly are you suggesting? You lean in conspiratorially, keeping your voice to a whisper. What if we charmed his goblet at breakfast, made it squirt juice when he takes a drink? Nothing harmful, just surprising. It would probably only work once before he figures it out. Duncan's eyes light up immediately. That's brilliant. Can we do that? Petra bites her lip, clearly torn between her natural caution and the part of her that thinks this actually sounds fun. I've read about temporary enchantments. It's just a modified aguamenti charm combined with a proximity trigger. It would be technically challenging. The planning takes most of the evening, and you're struck by how invested Petra becomes once she commits to the idea, pulling books off the common room shelves to research the exact wand movements and incantations you'll need. The three of you practice on your own goblets in the common room, trying to get the magic right without making them permanently enchanted. Duncan's first attempt results in his goblet exploding in a shower of pumpkin juice that gets all over his robes, and he has to sneak back to the dormitory to change while trying to avoid the prefects. Your attempt works, but the trigger is too sensitive, the goblet squirting juice constantly even when no one's near it. Petra's version is nearly perfect, the enchantment subtle enough that it won't be detected, but strong enough to work reliably. The next morning at breakfast, you watch Oliver take his seat at the Hufflepuff table, his goblet already filled with pumpkin juice by the house elves who maintain the Great Hall. Duncan nudges you under the table, barely containing his excitement, and you see Petra's fingers tighten slightly on her fork, even though her expression remains neutral. Oliver is talking animatedly to the student beside him, gesturing with one hand while reaching for his goblet with the other. He lifts it to his lips, takes a drink, and immediately gets a face full of pumpkin juice as the enchanted goblet squirts directly at him. The juice sprays across his nose and cheeks and drips down onto his robes. And for a moment, there's absolute silence at the Hufflepuff table before his friends burst into laughter. You force yourself to keep your expression neutral, to look mildly surprised like everyone else in the hall, but your shoulders are shaking with suppressed laughter. Duncan has his hand over his mouth, his face going red with the effort of staying quiet. Petra is looking down at her plate, her lips pressed together in a thin line that might be disapproval or might be her fighting a smile. Oliver wipes juice from his face with his napkin, looking bewildered and slightly annoyed, but you notice his friends examining the goblet and explaining that it must have been enchanted, that someone played a prank on him. By the time you see Oliver later that day in the corridor between classes, he's clearly figured out who was responsible. He walks right up to your group with a knowing look on his face. "That was you three, wasn't it?" For a moment you consider denying it, but something about the way Oliver's asking, more curious than angry, makes you reconsider. "Clever," you say instead, not quite confirming or denying. Oliver laughs, shaking his head. "It was actually pretty good. The enchantment was subtle. I didn't even feel the magic until it was too late. You should work on the trigger, though. Make it less obvious next time." He walks away, still smiling, and you realize that he's not upset at all. If anything, he seems impressed. Word spreads quickly around the first years that you and Duncan and Petra were behind the goblet prank, and you notice other students regarding your group with a new kind of interest. Not fear exactly, just a sort of respectful awareness that you're the type of people who know how to have harmless fun. It's because of this growing reputation that Duncan suggests escalating to a bigger prank a week later. There's a Slytherin first year named Sasha Thornton who shares several classes with you, and she's been increasingly condescending about Ravenclaw House. Nothing overtly cruel, but lots of comments about how Slytherin has produced more powerful wizards than any other house. How cunning beats mere intelligence every time. How Ravenclaws think they're so smart, but they lack practical ambition. It grates on you more than you want to admit, partly because some of what she says feels designed to get under your skin specifically. "We should do something about it," Duncan says one evening in the common room. "Nothing mean, just something that makes a point." The plan takes shape over several days, and this time it's more elaborate than a simple modified charm. The idea is to enchant Sasha's school bag so that when she opens it in class, harmless colored smoke will billow out, lots of it, enough to be dramatic, but with no lasting effect. Petra is the one who figures out how to layer the smoke charm with a containment spell so it won't trigger until the bag is opened, and you practice the wand movements until you can perform them perfectly. The tricky part is actually getting access to Sasha's bag for the 30 seconds you need to cast the enchantment properly. Duncan, showing surprising strategic thinking, suggests creating a distraction during potions class when everyone's bags are piled near the door. The next potions lesson, you wait until Professor Blackwood is deeply involved in explaining the properties of dried billywig stings before nodding to Duncan. He drops his cauldron with a tremendous crash, potion ingredients scattering everywhere, and immediately starts apologizing profusely while Professor Blackwood sighs the sigh of a man who has dealt with countless student accidents. In the commotion, while everyone's attention is on Duncan, you slip over to where the bags are piled and quickly cast the enchantment on Sasha's distinctive green bag. Your wand movements are smooth and practiced, the incantation barely a whisper, and the magic settles over the bag like invisible silk. By the time Professor Blackwood has vanished the mess and gotten Duncan a replacement cauldron, you're back at your station looking innocently concerned about your friend's clumsiness. The next day in Charms class, you watch Sasha take her seat several rows ahead of you, completely unaware of what's about to happen. Professor Elmswood is already at the front of the room, explaining something about counter charms with his usual enthusiastic hand gestures. Sasha reaches for her bag to pull out her textbook, and the moment her fingers grasp the opening, brilliant purple smoke begins billowing out in great clouds. It keeps coming and coming, far more than should fit in a bag that size, spreading across the classroom in rolling waves, while Sasha makes a surprised squeaking sound and tries frantically to close the bag again. Students start laughing, some jumping back from the spreading smoke, and Professor Elmswood has to wave his wand several times to clear the air, looking more amused than angry. Sasha's face when the smoke finally clears is bright red, her jaw clenched tight with fury and embarrassment. She looks around the classroom, trying to identify who's responsible, and her eyes land immediately on your group. You, Duncan, and Petra are all sitting very still, trying to appear innocent, but you can feel Duncan shaking with barely suppressed laughter beside you, and that's probably what gives you away. After class, Sasha corners you in the corridor, her eyes blazing. "I know it was you three," she says, her voice low and dangerous. "That was you." You meet her gaze steadily, trying to project confidence you don't entirely feel. "Prove it," you say, and after a long moment, Sasha makes a frustrated sound and storms away toward the dungeons, her bag clutched tightly in one hand. Walking back to Ravenclaw Tower afterward, you feel a twinge of something uncomfortable in your chest. Guilt, maybe, or just the sense that perhaps the prank went further than you intended. Petra voices what you're thinking. Maybe that was too far. She looked really upset. Duncan, for once, isn't laughing. "She's been pretty nasty to us, though, and to other Ravenclaws. She kind of had it coming." You chew on your lower lip, not sure what to think. The prank was harmless in the physical sense. The smoke didn't hurt anyone, and it cleared quickly. But the humiliation on Sasha's face lingers in your memory, and you wonder if maybe proving a point isn't always worth the cost. That night you can't sleep. The dormitory is quiet around you, Duncan snoring softly from his bed, and the other boys breathing in the deep rhythms of sleep. But your mind won't settle. The ceiling above your bed shows stars through an enchanted window, but instead of finding them soothing, you just keep replaying the moment when Sasha's expression shifted from surprise to hurt to anger. After perhaps an hour of tossing and turning, you give up and climb out of bed, pulling your warmest dressing gown over your pajamas and finding your wand on the nightstand. The common room will be empty at this hour, you think, and maybe sitting by the fire will help quiet your thoughts enough to sleep. The castle at night is a different world than during the day. Corridors are darker despite the torches that burn eternally in their wall sconces. The shadows deeper and more alive. Portraits snore in their frames or murmur sleepily as you pass. And somewhere in the distance, you hear the sound of water dripping. You're not technically breaking any rules as long as you stay within your house area, but there's still something transgressive about being awake and moving while everyone else sleeps, something that makes your heart beat a little faster. The Ravenclaw common room is indeed empty when you solve the Eagle Knocker's riddle and slip inside. Just the dying embers of the fire, providing a warm orange glow in the darkness. You settle into one of the armchairs near the hearth, tucking your feet under you and staring into the coals, letting your mind finally start to empty. That's when you hear the voices, faint at first, coming from somewhere outside the common room, in the corridor beyond the eagle door. Your first instinct is to hide, thinking perhaps it's a prefect doing rounds, but something about the hushed tone makes you freeze instead. The voices are arguing, you realize. Two people trying to stay quiet, but the disagreement making them forget to whisper. You slide out of your chair and move closer to the door, pressing your ear against the wood. One voice you recognize immediately as Marcus Weatherby, your prefect, and he sounds stressed in a way you've never heard from him before. "You're obsessed, Marcus," the other voice is saying, someone you don't recognize. "This isn't healthy." "She's beaten me in every subject for 4 years, Marcus replies, and there's something raw in his voice, something almost desperate. "Every single one. I study harder, I practice more, I spend every waking moment trying to be better, and she still beats me, every time." The other person sighs. "So what? You're still brilliant. You're a prefect. You help people. Why does being number one matter so much?" There's a pause, and when Marcus speaks again, his voice is lower, harder to hear. "Because I need to prove I'm good enough. I need something that's mine, something where I'm the best. Just once." You hold your breath, not daring to move. The other voice says something you can't quite catch, and then Marcus says very clearly, "The Founder's quill could change that." Your heart skips a beat. The other person makes a scoffing sound. "That's just a legend. Half the artifacts people claim are hidden in this castle don't actually exist. And even if it did exist, it would be protected, warded, probably impossible to access." Marcus's voice drops even lower, and you have to strain to hear. "It exists. I found references in the restricted section, an old journal from the 1800s, written by a student who claimed to have seen it. Hidden in the castle's east wing, behind the tapestry of Rowena Ravenclaw. A quill that enhances the writer's magical ability when they use it." The other voice sounds alarmed now. "You're not seriously thinking about stealing it? Marcus, that's insane. You could be expelled." There's a long pause. "I just need it once. One essay, one perfect piece of work to prove I'm capable of being the best. Then I'll return it." The other voice says something sharp that you don't catch. And then there are footsteps, both people moving away down the corridor, their voices fading into distance. You stay pressed against the door for a long moment after the sounds disappear completely. your heart pounding so hard you can feel it in your throat. Marcus Weatherby, the prefect who seemed so responsible and kind, is planning to steal a founder's artifact. You can barely process what you've just heard, and when you finally make your way back to the dormitory and climb into bed, sleep is even further away than before. Morning arrives gray and cold, rain pattering against the windows, and you feel like you've barely slept at all. Duncan takes one look at you at breakfast and immediately asks what's wrong. You look terrible, no offense. You glance around to make sure no one else is listening before leaning in close and telling Duncan and Petra everything you heard last night. Duncan's eyes get wider and wider as you speak, while Petra's expression grows increasingly serious. "Marcus Weatherby," Duncan says when you finish. "Our prefect, Marcus? Are you absolutely sure?" You nod. "I'd recognize his voice anywhere. He's planning to steal something called the Founder's Quill, something that supposedly enhances magical ability." Petra is already thinking. You can see it in the way her eyes narrow slightly. If it's a real Founder artifact, it belongs to the school. Taking it would be theft at minimum, possibly much more serious depending on the magical properties involved. Duncan looks torn. "But he's our prefect. He's always been nice to us. Maybe we misheard?" You shake your head. "I didn't mishear. He's planning to take it from somewhere in the East Wing, behind a tapestry of Rowena Ravenclaw." Petra sets down her fork with a decisive clink. "We should tell someone, Professor Thistlewood, or Professor Flitwick, or even the headmaster. An adult needs to know about this." But something in you hesitates at that suggestion. What if I did mishear, though? What if we get Marcus in trouble for something he wasn't actually planning to do? Or what if there's more to the story that we don't understand? Duncan nods slowly. "Yeah, like, what if he's just talking about it but won't actually do it? People say crazy things when they're stressed. Doesn't mean they follow through." Petra looks between both of you, clearly uncomfortable with the direction this is going. "So, what do you suggest? We just ignore the fact that someone is planning to steal from the school?" You chew on your bottom lip, thinking. What if we watch him? Try to figure out if he's really going to do it, or if it was just talk. Then we'll know for sure whether we need to tell someone. The decision is made more through lack of alternatives than actual agreement, and over the next few days, you find yourself paying much more attention to Marcus than you ever have before. You notice that he looks stressed, dark circles under his eyes suggesting he's not sleeping well. You see him in the library frequently, bent over old books about castle history, taking notes with quick, urgent movements of his quill. During meals, he's quieter than usual, often staring into space rather than engaging with his friends. One afternoon, you work up the courage to approach him where he's sitting alone in the library. "Marcus, are you okay?" He looks up startled, as if he didn't hear you approaching, and for a moment, there's something almost haunted in his expression. "What? Yes, fine, just busy with homework." But his hands are full of notes about the east wing of the castle, architectural drawings and historical records, and he quickly covers them when he realizes you can see. "Do you need something?" he asks, and there's an edge to his voice that wasn't there before. "No, you seem worried about something." He forces a smile that doesn't reach his eyes. "Fifth year is stressful, that's all. You'll understand when you get here." He gathers his notes and stands. "I have to go, prefect duties." And he's gone before you can say anything else. That evening in the common room, you report back to Duncan and Petra. He's definitely planning something. He's got maps of the castle, old architectural drawings. He's researching the East Wing specifically. Petra closes her Transfiguration textbook with a snap. Then we need to tell someone. This has gone far enough. But Duncan shakes his head. We still don't have proof he's actually going to do anything. What if we're wrong? What if we ruin his life over nothing? You can see both sides of the argument, can feel yourself being pulled in two different directions. On one hand, Marcus is an adult, a prefect, someone in a position of authority who should be held accountable. On the other hand, he's also a student, not that much older than you, clearly struggling with something you don't fully understand. What if, you say slowly, the idea forming as you speak, what if we try to catch him in the act? If he's really going to steal the quill, we'll be there to stop him before he actually takes it. That way we know for sure, and maybe we can talk him out of it before he does something he can't take back. Petra looks at you like you've lost your mind. That's a terrible idea. We're first years. What makes you think we could stop a fifth year from doing anything? Duncan, however, is nodding. But if we're there, even just as witnesses, he might listen. He might see reason. And if he doesn't, we can run for help before he actually takes the artifact. You can see Petra wavering, caught between her natural caution and the desire to find a solution that doesn't involve potentially ruining Marcus's life. This is incredibly stupid, she finally says. If we get caught out of bed after hours, we'll be in detention for weeks. Duncan grins. Probably. But when has that ever stopped a Ravenclaw from doing what needs to be done? You expect Petra to argue further, but instead she sighs deeply. Fine, but we're making a plan first. A real plan, not just running around the castle hoping for the best. The planning takes another full day, with Petra taking charge in a way that's both impressive and slightly terrifying. She uses her access to the library to research spells for moving silently, for hiding in shadows, for protecting against detection. She maps out routes through the castle to the East Wing, identifying which corridors have paintings that might report you and which staircases are reliable at night. She even works out a system of hand signals so you can communicate without speaking, practicing them at the dinner table until Duncan complains that he feels like he's training to be an Auror rather than just stopping a prefect from making a bad choice. But despite all the preparation, you can see the nervousness in Petra's eyes, the way her hands shake slightly when she packs her wand in her robe pocket. The opportunity comes 3 nights later. You're in the common room pretending to do homework, but actually watching Marcus, and you see him checking his watch repeatedly, glancing toward the common room entrance with barely concealed impatience. At 10:30, he stands abruptly, makes some excuse to his friends about needing to check on something, and leaves the common room. You count to 30, giving him enough head start that he won't immediately notice you following, then gather Duncan and Petra with a meaningful look. The 3 of you slip out into the corridor as quietly as possible, Petra casting the silencing charm on your shoes that she's been practicing all week. The spell works perfectly, your footsteps making no sound at all on the stone floor, and you move through the castle like ghosts. Following Marcus isn't difficult because he's not trying to be stealthy, clearly confident that no one would be following a prefect on his rounds. He moves through corridors with purpose, heading steadily toward the East Wing, and you keep a careful distance, ducking behind statues and tapestries whenever he glances back. The castle feels different at night, more ancient somehow, as if the stones remember all the centuries they've stood here. and are watching your small drama unfold with patient curiosity. Your heart is racing so fast you feel lightheaded, and you're acutely aware of every sound, every shadow, every portrait that might be pretending to sleep while actually observing your passage. The East Wing is older than the parts of the castle you're familiar with, the architecture more austere, the corridors narrower. Marcus climbs a staircase to the 3rd floor and stops in front of a large tapestry that depicts Rowena Ravenclaw surrounded by books and scrolls, her wise face looking out at viewers with an expression that seems to invite contemplation. Marcus pulls out his wand and begins examining the wall behind the tapestry, running his fingers along the stones, muttering what sound like detection spells under his breath. You and Duncan and Petra are hidden behind a suit of armor 20 feet away, barely breathing, watching as Marcus's searching becomes more urgent. And then he finds it, a loose stone that shifts under his touch, and behind it, a small, hidden latch. He pulls, and part of the wall swings inward, silently, revealing a space that's been concealed for who knows how long. Inside the hidden alcove, illuminated by the soft glow of Marcus's wand, is a glass case. And inside the case, resting on velvet that's faded with age, is a quill. Even from where you're hiding, you can see that it's beautiful, the feather iridescent and catching the light in ways that suggest magic, the tip gleaming silver. It glows with a faint blue light, pulsing gently like a heartbeat, and you understand immediately why it's been hidden. This is something powerful, something that should be protected. Marcus reaches toward the case with shaking hands, his fingers touching the glass, and that's when you step forward, your voice coming out louder and steadier than you feel. "Marcus, don't!" He spins around so fast he nearly drops his wand, his face going white with shock when he sees you and Duncan and Petra emerging from your hiding place. "What are you?" He can't seem to finish the sentence, just stares at the 3 of you like you're ghosts materialized out of the walls. You step closer, putting yourself between him and the case, even though he's nearly twice your size. "We know what you're planning. We heard you talking about it. We can't let you do this." Marcus's expression shifts rapidly through shock, anger, fear, and finally settles on something like desperation. "You need to leave, now. This doesn't concern you." Duncan moves up to stand beside you, his usual good humor completely absent. "You're our prefect. You're supposed to set an example. How can we let you steal something from the school?" Marcus's jaw clenches. "You don't understand. You're just first years. You don't know what it's like to work and work and work and still never be good enough. This quill," he gestures toward the case without looking at it, "this could finally make me the best at something. Just once, I need to be the best." You can hear the pain in his voice, the years of frustration and disappointment, and part of you aches for him, even as you know what he's planning is wrong. "But it's stealing," you say quietly. "Even if no one else knows the quill is here, even if you return it afterward, it's still taking something that doesn't belong to you." Marcus takes a step toward you, and you force yourself not to back away. "What do you know? You're 11 years old. You haven't had time to fail yet, to watch someone else be better than you at everything, no matter how hard you try. This is my last chance to prove myself before I graduate." Petra's voice comes from your other side, calm and measured. "Taking the quill won't prove anything. Whatever you write with it won't really be your work. It'll be magic doing the writing, not you. You'll always know it wasn't real. That seems to strike deeper than anything else said so far, and Marcus flinches. It's been hidden here for decades. No one even remembers it exists except in legends. Who would it hurt? You open your mouth to answer, but another voice speaks from the shadows behind you. It would hurt you. Everyone jumps, wands coming up reflexively, and Sasha Thornton steps into the light cast by Marcus's wand. She's in her pajamas under her school robes, her expression unusually serious, and she's looking directly at Marcus. "How long have you been there?" you demand, shocked. "I followed you," Sasha says, still focused on Marcus. "All of you. I wanted to see what you were up to after that stupid smoke prank. Thought maybe I could catch you breaking rules and report you. But I heard enough. And they're right. You steal that quill, everything you do afterward will be tainted. You'll never trust your own abilities again. Never know what's you and what's the magic." Marcus looks around at all four of you, these first-year students who've somehow ended up confronting him in a hidden corner of the castle at midnight, and something in his expression breaks. His hand, still extended toward the case, begins to tremble. "I just wanted to prove I was good enough," he says, and his voice sounds very young suddenly, like he's not that much older than you after all. "Every assignment, every exam, every time I think I've finally done something brilliant, she does it better. I'm so tired of being second best. I just wanted one thing to be mine." You take another step closer, close enough now that you could reach out and touch him if you wanted. Being good enough isn't about being the best. It's about doing your best, and you already do that. Everyone knows you're brilliant, Marcus. You don't need magic to prove your worth. For a long moment, Marcus just stands there, his hand still outstretched, and you can see the internal battle playing out across his face. All those years of being almost good enough, of pushing himself harder and harder, and still coming up short, all of that is warring with what he knows is right. Finally, slowly, he lowers his hand. It drops to his side with a defeated sag, and he takes a step back from the case. Then another, and then he's turning away completely, his back to the founder's quill, his shoulders slumped. "You're right," he says quietly. "Of course you're right. What was I thinking?" He looks at you with eyes that shine with unshed tears. "How did you get so wise at 11 years old?" You don't really have an answer for that, so you just say, "I don't know, but I know stealing is wrong, and I know you're better than this." Marcus looks around at all of you again, these 4 first years who've somehow managed to talk him back from the edge of a decision that could have ruined his life. "Thank you," he says finally, "for stopping me, for not just reporting me right away. You could have gotten me expelled, and instead, you..." He doesn't finish the sentence, just shakes his head. "Thank you." He reaches out and carefully closes the hidden panel, the alcove disappearing back into the wall as if it was never there. The tapestry of Rowena Ravenclaw swings back into place, and now there's no sign anything out of the ordinary exists behind it. The 5 of you stand there in the corridor, the tension slowly draining away to be replaced by exhaustion. Marcus takes a deep breath, visibly pulling himself together, becoming a prefect again rather than a desperate student. "I'll report the artifact's location tomorrow, properly through official channels. The headmaster should know it's here so it can be properly protected." You nod, relieved. "That's good." Marcus looks at each of you in turn, his expression serious. "I won't forget this, any of you. You could have ruined my life, but but you chose to help instead. That takes real courage." He glances at his watch. "We all need to get back before someone notices we're missing. I'll walk you back to your common rooms." The walk back through the castle is quiet, everyone lost in their own thoughts. When you reach the point where Sasha needs to split off toward the Slytherin dormitories, Marcus pauses. "Miss Thornton, I'd appreciate if we kept this night between us." Sasha looks at him for a long moment, then nods. "I'm not going to report anyone, but..." She turns to you, Duncan, and Petra. "About the smoke prank." You tense, expecting anger, but Sasha just shakes her head. "I deserved it, honestly. I've been pretty awful to you lot. The prank was clever, and maybe I needed to be taken down a peg." She pauses, looking uncomfortable with the vulnerability of what she's saying. "Thanks for tonight, for including me in whatever that was, for not hexing me when I showed up uninvited. We were all just trying to do the right thing," you say, and Sasha's expression softens slightly. "Maybe we could not be enemies? I don't expect us to be friends, but respectful acquaintances." Duncan, always the peacemaker, grins. "Respectful acquaintances sounds good." Sasha actually smiles, just a small twitch of her lips, before nodding and heading off toward the dungeons. The three of you continue on with Marcus toward Ravenclaw Tower, and when you reach the Eagle Knocker, Marcus stops. "I mean it," he says quietly. "Thank you, all of you. You reminded me who I'm supposed to be." Then he's gone, disappearing down the corridor to continue his prefect rounds as if nothing out of the ordinary has happened. The Eagle Knocker asks its riddle. What is more valuable than gold but cannot be bought? The three of you look at each other, and you answer together, the word coming out in perfect unison: integrity. The door swings open, and you file into the common room, which is dark except for the dying fire in the hearth. You stand there together for a moment in the shadows, and Duncan lets out a long breath. "Did we just stop a prefect from committing a crime?" Petra sounds dazed. "I believe we did." You look around the common room, at the blue and bronze hangings, and the starry ceiling, and the shelves full of books, and it all feels different now. More real, more home. This is your house. These are your friends. And tonight, you all did something that mattered. The display case on the wall catches your eye, the replica of Ravenclaw's diadem gleaming softly in the dim light. You think about the real founder's quill, hidden in the walls of the castle, and about Marcus, who almost threw everything away to use it. You think about ambition and desperation, about the difference between wanting to be the best and being willing to do anything to get there. And you think about the choice your group made, to try to help rather than simply report, to believe in someone's better nature even when they were on the edge of making a terrible mistake. Duncan yawns hugely. "Can we please sleep now? I'm exhausted, and we still have potions first thing tomorrow morning." Petra is already heading toward the dormitory stairs. "If either of you snore too loudly tonight, I'm hexing you." But there's affection in her voice, the kind that comes from shared experience, from going through something intense together and coming out the other side. You climb the spiral staircase to your dormitory one last time, your legs heavy with exhaustion, your mind still spinning with everything that happened. The other boys in your dormitory are deeply asleep, undisturbed by your late return, and you change into your pajamas as quietly as possible before sliding into bed. The sheets are cool and welcoming, and you sink into the mattress with a grateful sigh. Tomorrow you'll wake up and be a normal student again, attending classes and doing homework and complaining about difficult professors. But tonight, just for tonight, you're something more. You're someone who stood up for what was right, even when it was hard. Someone who believed a person could choose to be better. Someone who helped prevent a tragedy without destroying the person who might have caused it. Sleep comes more easily than you expected, pulling you down into dreams of hidden corridors and glowing quills and eagles asking riddles. And when morning arrives with its gray light and the sound of rain still pattering against the windows, when Duncan groans and complains about how early it is and Petra is already up and dressed with her school books organized, you feel different. Older somehow, not in years, but in understanding. You've learned that being a Ravenclaw isn't just about being clever or getting good marks. It's about wisdom, about knowing when to speak up and when to listen, about understanding that people are complicated, and sometimes the bravest thing you can do is give someone a chance to make the right choice. The days that follow settle back into routine, but there's a shift in the way people interact with your group. Marcus goes out of his way to help you in classes, offering study tips and encouragement that feels genuine rather than obligatory. Sasha sits with you occasionally at meals, her sharp tongue still present, but turned toward humor rather than meanness. Other students seem to regard you, Duncan and Petra, with a kind of respect you haven't earned through pranks or good grades, something deeper that you don't quite understand, but that feels important nonetheless. Professor Thistlewood comments one day that your group has a maturity beyond your years, and though she doesn't explain what she means, you think maybe she knows more than she's saying. The castle continues to reveal its secrets to you as the weeks pass. You find more hidden passages, more shortcuts, more rooms that don't appear on any map. You learn which portraits are trustworthy and which will tattle to the nearest professor. You discover that the library has sections within sections, knowledge nested like Russian dolls, and that if you're patient and observant enough, Hogwarts itself will teach you things no classroom ever could. But more than the castle's secrets, you learn about the people around you. You learn that Duncan's constant humor hides a sharp intelligence and deep loyalty, that Petra's caution comes from a place of caring deeply about consequences, that Sasha's aggression was always just armor protecting insecurity, that Marcus's perfectionism stemmed from a wound you'll probably never fully understand. And you learn about yourself too. You learn that you're braver than you thought, that you can stand up to someone older and bigger when it matters. You learn that doing the right thing isn't always clear-cut, that sometimes the moral choice requires nuance and empathy rather than rigid rules. You learn that friendship isn't just about having fun together, though that's important too, but about being willing to take risks for each other, to support each other through difficult decisions, to trust that you're all trying your best even when you mess up. One evening, several weeks after the incident in the East Wing, you're sitting in the common room with Duncan and Petra, supposedly working on a herbology essay, but actually just talking about nothing in particular. The fire crackles warmly, and outside the windows, snow has begun to fall, the first snow of the season dusting the grounds in white. Marcus walks past your group on his way to the library, and he pauses, placing a hand briefly on your shoulder. "You three doing all right?" You look up at him and smile. "Yeah, we're good." He nods, squeezes your shoulder once, and continues on his way. It's a small moment, barely worth noting, but it feels significant somehow. A reminder of what happened, of the choice he made to walk away, of the role you played in helping him find his way back. The Founder's quill is properly secured now, removed from its hidden alcove, and placed in the headmaster's office under powerful protective spells. The official story is that it was discovered during routine maintenance of the castle's eastern wing, and no mention is made of prefects or first years or midnight confrontations. Marcus's name never comes up in connection with the artifact's location, and you're grateful for that. He deserves the chance to move forward without that shadow hanging over him, to prove himself through his actual abilities rather than having his near mistake define him forever. And from what you can see, he's doing exactly that, throwing himself into his studies with renewed focus, but without the desperate edge that characterized him before. Whatever internal battle he was fighting, it seems like he's found some measure of peace. As for you, you settle deeper into life at Hogwarts, into the rhythms of classes and meals and common room evenings. You pull more pranks, though never quite as elaborate as the ones on Oliver and Sasha, keeping them harmless and funny rather than mean-spirited. You excel in charms and struggle in potions and find transfiguration fascinating despite its difficulty. You spend hours in the library with Petra, Duncan usually nearby complaining about being hungry but rarely actually leaving. You explore the castle whenever you get the chance, mapping out its mysteries, learning its moods. You write long letters home describing everything you're experiencing, and your older sibling writes back with advice and encouragement and stories about their own time in these halls. And sometimes, late at night, when the common room is quiet and you're alone with your thoughts, you think about that moment in the East Wing, about standing between Marcus and something he desperately wanted, about choosing to believe he could be better, about the weight of that decision and the relief when he proved you right. You think about how easily it could have gone differently, how close you came to either watching him destroy his future or having to report him and potentially destroy it yourself. But it didn't go differently. It went right as something that messy and complicated could go, and that matters. The snow continues falling outside the windows, and somewhere in the castle, a clock chimes midnight. You should probably go to bed. You have transfiguration first thing tomorrow, and Professor Thistlewood doesn't appreciate students falling asleep in her class. But you linger a few moments more by the dying fire, Duncan's soft snoring drifting down from the dormitory above, Petra's bookmark still sitting on the arm of her favorite chair where she left it earlier. This place, these people, this life you're building one day at a time, it all feels precious in a way you couldn't have understood before you came here. Hogwarts isn't perfect, and the people in it certainly aren't, but it's yours now, your home, your house, your story. You stand finally, stretching muscles stiff from sitting too long, and make your way toward the dormitory stairs. The eagle door knocker is silent as you pass, its bronze eyes seeming to watch you with approval, or maybe that's just your imagination. The stairs wind upward into darkness, and you climb them with the easy familiarity of someone who's walked this path dozens of times already, and will walk it hundreds more before your time here is done. Your bed is waiting, your wand on the nightstand, tomorrow's classes and adventures already forming in the distance like promises. And as you finally sink into sleep, your last conscious thought is that this is only the beginning. You're only a first year. You have 6 more years of this, 6 more years of magic and mystery and friendship and growth. 6 more years of becoming whoever you're meant to be, one choice at a time, one day at a time, one adventure at a time. The thought should be overwhelming, but instead it fills you with a quiet joy, a sense of rightness that settles over you like a warm blanket. You're exactly where you're supposed to be, doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing, becoming exactly who you're supposed to become. Sleep takes you gently, and you dream of blue and bronze, of starlit ceilings and eagle door knockers, of friends who feel like family and a castle that feels like home. You dream of wisdom and courage, of difficult choices made right, of the person you're slowly becoming in these halls built by founders long dead, but whose magic still thrums through every stone. You dream of Hogwarts and of yourself within it, and of all the adventures still waiting to unfold in the years ahead. The castle sleeps around you, ancient and patient and full of secrets, and you sleep within it, young and learning and full of potential. And tomorrow, when you wake, it will all begin again. Another day in a life that's becoming more magical and more meaningful with each passing moment. Another day of being a Ravenclaw, of being a friend, of being brave enough to stand up for what's right, even when it's hard. Another day of being yourself, which turns out to be the most magical thing of all. And so, my dear witches and wizards, we've reached the end of this particular adventure. Though of course your story at Hogwarts is really just beginning. You've made true friends, you've discovered that courage isn't always loud, and you've learned that sometimes the most important magic isn't in spells or potions, but in the choices we make about who we want to be. I hope you've found some comfort in this journey, some peace in walking these familiar halls, some warmth in the friendships forged by firelight. Remember that doing what's right often requires more bravery than any duel, and that wisdom comes not from always having the answers, but from knowing when to ask the questions. Until our next adventure together, sleep well, dream deeply, and know that somewhere in your heart, Hogwarts is always waiting to welcome you home. Good night, and may your dreams be full of magic.